although a lot of the scholarship frameworks and planning is geared toward traditional freshmen. It doesn't mean that there are not options for students that are not freshmen. So there are options for scholarships for students throughout their entirety of being in college. And I think that's so important for students and families to understand.
Hey everyone, I'm Will Geiger, co founder of Scholarships 360, and I'm really excited to be joined today by Dr. Toro Yates, who's the Vice President of Enrollment at Kean University in New Jersey. Welcome, Toro.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited for the conversation.
Yeah, so I like to kick things off with a little bit of myth busting. I know that there's a lot of myths and misconceptions that students have about higher education. I was curious what your take is on the biggest misconception about the admissions process or higher ed right now.
Sure. I think one of the a myth that definitely need to be busted is that there is this the cost of higher education is this astronomical number for every college and university in the nation. Yes, there's different costs, and some of the costs have started to reach places that makes it somewhat out of reach for your typical middle to low income student. But there are options that are out there for every student. And I think that it really depends on the student, the family, their financial situation, their willingness to think about debt from a financial literacy standpoint, and truly what makes sense to the families. Because utilizing community colleges as an option to go for 2 years and cut the cost in half of attending an institution, or maybe it's a student staying in state and utilizing all the different state and federal aid attached to being a in-state student when making these decisions, and even private institutions versus public institution when you talk about the cost. So every institution doesn't cost $100,000 a year to attend. Really, I think that's important for families to understand.
Yeah, no, I think you bring up a number of really good points. So number one, just like higher ed is not this like monolithic, product or experience where it's just a one size fits all. Many different pathways, and I think we do tend to focus on a certain, group of very selective, expensive institutions that I think in a lot of ways are, for many families not going to be, they're not going to pay like the full cost of attendance. But the sticker price is, close to that $100,000 a year. But that
Right.
is just not representative of, most of higher ed or where most people are educated. And I think that's a really important thing just to, always, always bring up in the conversation. And I think the financial literacy, that's a really interesting, other part of this. Yeah, I'm curious, yeah, if you have any takes on that part of the experience for high school students.
Yes. I mean, it's if think about a student who applies to college and a family, and they submit a FAFSA, and when that information comes back and they go to an institution, and that institution will offer scholarships and aid packages, and really for a family to understand that there's grants and types of aid that they do not have to pay back, and there are loans that are now a part of a financial aid package that they will need to pay back, and understanding that differential and what is the percentages of interest that's attached to it and those types of things is really important for a family when they're thinking about, yes, I may have received a um 35 let's say the an institution and the tuition per year is $70,000, and I receive a $35,000 scholarship. It is still my responsibility, and family's responsibility to really come up with that additional 35,000. And what does that look like? Again, it could be different scholarships, it could be loans, and then understanding private loans, um, in addition to the federal backed loans that families can receive. So those things are very important, and it can help a student when that student is thinking about life when they graduate, meaning going to graduate school, buying the first house, first washing machine, first car. Families are having to, students are unfortunately having to make these decisions to think about the starting points and entry points into the workforce and how they will be able to afford things and building a traditional family as they move forward.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely. I think it's an important thing for students and families to remember. Just college is a wonderful experience, but you want to make sure that you're set up for success. And I think the debt load needs to be part of that, and that can definitely impact other types of life decisions you might be making. Um, I know you mentioned the community college pathway, which really big fan of that. I know also that Kean is a real leader in terms of providing transfer pathways for students, including community college students. Yeah, curious if you could share a little bit more about the what that looks like at Kean, which is public institution in New Jersey.
Sure. So I think from a Kane University perspective, we look at transfer students as a student that's a more mature student, a student who may be more skilled because they now have some college underneath their belt, if you will. And then typically for college students, when they graduate with an associate degree, it increases the number of credits that will transfer into an institution. So it's to a student's benefit if they attend a community college to graduate from that, from the community college when they look to transfer into a four-year institution. And at Kane University, our focus is on building pathways through transfer articulation agreements. So making sure that those agreements are constantly evolving. And Kean University also has Kean Global, which is an online entity for the institution where there's a focus on students who transfer in. There's a focus on students who are 24 and older, but it's really creating different pathways for students to be able to continue their education. So we definitely look at transfers as a plus specifically because of the enrollment cliff and over the projected, we're in that cliff now. And say if we're year one, year two, there's still a projected 8 years of declining growth in the number of high school students graduating from high schools and going right into college. So we look at transfer students as one of those populations that can help us grow as an institution during this time frame of the enrollment cliff. So we're looking at it as an advantage in how we go about recruiting transfers to come to the institution.
Yeah, no, I love that, and it sounds like you're ahead of the curve there. I know a lot of schools are thinking about that right now. One thing I kind of want to just zoom in on, just for students and families out there who might not like know exactly what this means. Would you be able to just explain articulation agreement, just what
Sure.
that is and why that matters for especially for community college students?
Sure. So transfer articulation agreements are really pathways from, let's say, we're using community college as the example. So it's pathways from the community college by major to transfer into Kane University. And what we do is we look at each major and look at try to make it as seamless as possible for students to be able to transfer in and keep their momentum. And very importantly, for us here at Kane University is to make sure we minimize the amount of credits that are lost when students from transfer into our institution.
Yeah, no, and that is so important. Just you want to make sure that when you're getting your associates in 2 years, then you want to be as close as possible to graduating in 4 years, just so you can take advantage of the full savings of
Sure.
doing a community college to 4 year college pathway. Um, are there do you think there's any misconceptions that transfer students have about the admissions process, specifically students who might be coming from a community college?
That's an interesting question. For transfer students, I don't know if there's misconceptions. I think that some students who transfer to institutions, there are a couple of factors I think they should keep in mind. One is if I'm a student that graduates from a high school and I qualify at Kean University for a William Livingston scholarship, That's the top scholarship that we offer at Kean University. It's a full tuition and fees scholarship. I may earn that as a freshman, and if I was to attend Kean, I would receive that scholarship. But when I matriculate at another institution, and it can only be for one semester, if I try to transfer after one semester, I'm not going to be able to receive that scholarship that I would have if I came directly to Kean as a freshman. So I think that's really important for families to understand that different scholarships that a student may qualify in high school to attend at college. That's based on that incoming cycle when it
Mm.
comes to scholarships. So that's one. I think secondly, some students, and I would be remiss if I didn't say this in being very transparent from working at a 4-year institution. So there may be some students who will want to transfer into XYZ college or university. And the admissions folks will say, like, we cannot accept you now, but if you do, you complete a 4 year, so it could be 15 credits, 30 credits, then we'll look at you more as a college student, and that could help create a pathway earlier for a student to transfer into an institution. And although that is true, and that is an opportunity, it's a better opportunity if a student is specifically, we're talking about a community college, go there for them to graduate from that community college and get the associate degree. Because with that associate degree there, in these transfer articulation agreements, there are benefits for that student. There are different additional scholarships that the student may receive. They're going to be able to have more of their credits that's attached to their major, helping them to get right into their major versus some of those credits being maybe moved to an elective as such. So it's a benefit to me for a student to utilize as a transfer student, just understanding the full scale and map and opportunities that are there for them.
Yeah, no, I think those are great things to call out. Just a reminder for students that the scholarships like that, that's transfer process is different than first year process. Things change from year to year, and you just can't, necessarily expect, a financial aid offer to be honored if you choose to go to a different college. And then I think that's definitely good advice for community college students. And I think just the being able to get an associate's degree after 2 years is so huge. I was just reading in I think it was Inside Higher Ed the other day about a push, just to award more for 4-year colleges, even to award more. Associate's degree after 2 years. And I think it's a really interesting idea just because either way, you're still you're doing 2 years of college work, but if you're not necessarily getting a credential for that. It's kind of it's an interesting idea just because we know that an associate's degree also improves a student's earning power in the workforce and everything.
Well, it's important for when students have that associate degree. It's a higher educational credential, and they could take that credential to the marketplace and really secure employment. And that can help students out a lot. I worked at a community college in the South Bronx, and there was a stat that when a student graduates from that community college, the social mobility index not only improves for the student who graduates, but everyone in the household over a 10-year
Hmm.
span. So it's what we'll call social mobility generational increase that happens in that home. So being able to secure an associate degree can benefit a student. And really, in today's time, it's important for us to, when we have these discussions, think of traditional age student and non-traditional age students when we're talking about transfer opportunities for students.
Yeah, out of curiosity, how would you see like is there different advice that you might give to someone who I think about like my mom received her associates and she went back to college when actually I was in college to finish her 4-year degree, and that was really interesting just to see her experience. I'm curious, just having worked on, you know, community college, 4-year institutions, you have variety of different experiences, how that advice might differ for quote unquote adult learner.
Sure. So adult learners have typically will come into a college or university with a different level of focus. Many of them are already working. Many of them already have families. So time is of the essence for that student. They're typically a student that's going to be more focused and zeroed in on, I have X amount of credits. I need X amount to graduate. How fast can I do that? The one bit of advice I would give to that student is to make sure that the students take full advantage of all the support services that are on campus. Depending on the age of the student when they decide to come back, technology has changed a lot over the last 10 years, the last 20 years. So being able to just not not be overwhelmed with the level of technology that's infused into classrooms. And then just on a college setting, being I'm 53 years old now. So I'm imagine being 53 and walking into a classroom that may have 17 or 18 year olds, and I've been away from going to college. Maybe I've never attended, or I started and stopped, and now I'm re-engaging. So I think that there are a lot of colleges and universities that have the like Kean, this Kean global footprint that is a piece of the college, if you will, that's dedicated to making non-traditional students as comfortable on campus as possible, giving additional training that they may need when it comes to the technology piece, and then really creating as many options for that student as possible. Meaning, some of the classes they may do in person, some they may do hybrid, some they may do online. Is working with them to create as many options as possible to fit their schedule. So, for a non traditional age student, it's really for them to search out the institution that fit their schedule, that fit their way of life, and to fit their intentions.
Yeah, no, I think that's it's great you're making investments in that. I know sometimes we don't talk a lot about the technology piece, which I think is a real, like, I mean, gosh, like, the digital, like, technology enabled learning is like evolving so quickly right now. Even just what you think about all these different AI and LLM products, and this will just probably continue to accelerate, and just making sure that people are, equipped. To be successful, and there is, a learning curve, and it can be a little bit intimidating. And then I think, calling out that, kind of cultural adjustment where, that can be, challenging for someone, to be in a classroom with people who are, maybe decades younger, and just having, different types of life experiences. So that's great that you're investing in, like, this, it sounds like a really flexible framework for learners.
Definitely, and also I would think maybe not a myth, but something for students of all ages who are specifically transfers to understand, and that's what makes Scholarship 360 a vital tool for students. Is that although a lot of the scholarship frameworks and planning is geared toward traditional freshmen, it doesn't mean that there are not options for students that are not freshmen. So there are options for scholarships for students throughout their entirety of being in college, and I think that's so important for students and families to understand. Because there's some, I work with some students and family friends, and really just helping them think about other scholarship options once they get through the first semester of college. So then it's like, well, I still have some gaps. What are scholarship opportunities that are out there? And there are some that are out there. And just having entities like yours that can help really that scholarship search throughout their time in college, I think could be very helpful.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And yeah, that's, I think, one thing we're always trying to remind students. I think there's, we kind of, the data we see, there's like kind of the peak of scholarship interest tends to be like January, actually, of senior year of high school, which I think kind of makes sense. You may have submitted some applications, New Year's resolutions, you're going to start the year strong. And then, it kind of, that there's this like peak, and still students like searching and applying throughout senior year, but I definitely think there's a bit of a drop off in college, and there, probably less scholarships for college students, but there still
Right.
are, a number of opportunities available. I think institutions and specific academic departments offer scholarships,
Hmm.
sometimes scholarships for studying abroad, or maybe, funding to do an internship.
Yes.
And, not like that can just be, when you go back to the financial planning piece, like every dime you get in a scholarship, that's might be money you don't have to take out in student loans. And the way
Sure.
students loan work, that dollar you take out in a student loan, you're going to wind up paying more than that over the lifetime of it.
Yeah. And it's also what you mentioned as far as that time frame, even when students are simply in high school, a lot of times, again, we start off with that New Year's resolution and I gotta get on these scholarships, submit these date by these deadlines. But what helps with like utilizing a couple like yours is that you help with those deadlines and those dates. So sometimes there's just a lot of talented students who leave scholarship opportunities proverbially on the table because they missed the deadlines. And so just having constant reminders of what's out there, here is the process and here are the deadlines, can definitely help in how students are planning and parents are planning for the to help fund their education.
Yeah, I mean, that's, like, I think one of the most valuable and just, like, selfless plug about, Scholarships 360. One of the I think, most helpful things is just the email reminders about deadlines, and I get it, students are really busy, you have a lot going on, but, that can make all the difference if you just have that reminder that, "Oh, this is due next week or in a few days," and, you know, we definitely work with some scholarship providers that they you just really they can't find, especially for these more niche awards, they can't find, enough like really qualified students. So I think that's another part of it, like going a little bit deeper, finding these scholarships that are like kind of, really specific. They might be really local or really focused on students with a specific major that are in a specific county or something. And those are the opportunities that you have a very good shot of winning just because the pool is much smaller of potential students.
Definitely.
Um, um, I also wanted to touch upon to kind of shift gears a little bit. I know
Sure.
you've researched and written a lot about rural college access, and just
Yes.
yeah, love to hear a little bit more about that work.
Sure. So my dissertation, I studied a group of African American students who attended a it's interesting. It's a small city in New Jersey that is surrounded by four rural enclaves, these little small towns that could be from population city of the city, these small towns, if you will, could be anywhere from 800 to I think it was I'll say 1,500 that live in
Oh
these
wow.
four small rural towns, and then the one city has about 5,000 residents. So really, I was able to have like study an urban environment and a urban rural environment that really piqued my interest about things that are available for students and not available for students in these rural enclaves. So I published an article about this last April and carved out a piece of my dissertation. And I really took a look at what resources from internet access to hospitals to things that someone may take for granted who lives in an urban metropolitan area that you have access to Wi-Fi on a regular basis. Where you can like you figure I live in West Orange, New Jersey. So to drive from West Orange to the Kean Union, the main campus, it's a 15-minute drive, but I can bounce off of different Wi-Fi towers
Mhm.
throughout that drive and never fully lose Wi-Fi. Where in some rural areas, they just do not have that infrastructure that's built up, and depending on what administration is in at a given time, it can help maybe ramp up the infrastructure and that progress, or maybe even stall it. So the folks who are living in these rural areas, they face things from not having adequate supply of teachers. Because when folks who graduate high school from that area, when they leave out to go to college and to get into careers, many of them do not return back to those areas.
Yeah.
So being able to have school teachers, aides, principals, there's just such a dearth in having so much of these things that again, I grew up in an urban environment, and even at the growing up, I mean, I don't have a problem saying even for me growing up in poverty, I still had access to certain things that I have family that live in rural Virginia, and it is to pick a direction is 30 to 45 minutes to get to a hospital, right? So
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
some things that students who attend rural high schools are facing that it really should be talked about a lot more. And there is a part of that educational divide, I believe, that rural students are facing, or deficit is a better word, is based off of access. And Wi-Fi is a given example. And a lot of those areas that just do not have the infrastructure that's built up for it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really that's so interesting, and I think just also like you think about grew up in New Jersey, you don't think about like rural places in New Jersey as like top of mind, and it's just a good reminder just how diverse every state is. But I yeah recently had a question from someone about exactly that with like using scholarships 360 and someone who might have limited Wi-Fi access. I mean, the truth is, it's just like it's a digital tool that does require like internet access, and
Mhm.
might be able to access it at a library or at a school. But like to your point, in certain rural areas, like it's not like you can just walk down the street or hop on a bus or subway to get to the public library. That might be very far away if you don't have a car, if you don't have access to transportation.
Right.
Um,
And
that
think of
becomes really challenging.
yeah, I'm sorry. And think of access to just a virtual space. Like I
Mhm.
can only imagine how some of these rural areas dealt with COVID, and when everyone had to go, all the schools went online. Like, how did those areas deal with that? That lack of Wi-Fi, and then really depending on the resources for that district alone it becomes an issue for those areas, and then that the digital divide and think of like open source books. There are
Mhm.
some colleges and universities, and Kean is one of those that's moving towards this open access. So that's the type of books that are available for free. Our faculty online is moving towards utilizing our entire campus in that way, that almost taking away the need for a student to purchase a book, right? But just think about, there are students, when it comes to the type of research that they can do, utilizing a lot of tools that are, some students in other areas can use their phone to get access to this information, where it may be one or two places in a geographic region where a student can go to maybe go to a library or a different place to utilize a tool that your typical student may be walking around and can utilize and access it from their phone.
Yeah, yeah, no, it is really, yeah, really interesting, to think about, and I think appreciate you elevating the conversation around this, just in conversations with colleges this year. It does seem like there's a keen interest in supporting rural students and trying to create pathways. But I think it is a challenging, just because to your point, there's maybe less Wi-Fi, technology access, and then for admissions officers and for like access resources, it's just like logistically more challenging just to travel to more rural places.
Yeah,
And I think I remember when I was in college admissions, and if you go to a city or a suburban area, you might be able to visit like 5 or 6 high schools in a day. In a rural place, you might be like driving for hours in between schools, and that can just be much more challenging, to invest like admissions officer time into visiting some of these schools.
sure.
So it's definitely
Yeah.
a sticky problem.
And just for not even a shameless plug, but I will drop my dissertation and the
Yeah,
article
we'll definitely
in the
include that.
chat for you, that you can share it out. That'd be great.
Yeah, awesome. No, I would love to. Yeah, definitely would love to include that. Yeah, very, very. Yeah, excited to dig a little bit deeper. As we two more questions. As we begin
Right.
to wrap up. One, I know higher ed is changing so rapidly. I know we in this conversation, and we've just talked about like different pathways, flexibility, technology opening up new opportunities. What do you think the landscape looks like if we're projecting like, 10, 15, 20 years down the line?
Sure. So I think the need for developing critical thinkers will always exist. So whether it's AI or whatever the latest tool that happened or has happened over time, being able to develop critical thinkers who can utilize the tool to be able to advance society is something that's always going to be needed. So I think that there's an opportunity in higher education for us to examine how do we create entry points at every sector or at every stage of a student's academic journey. So maybe I'm a student that needs to go to vocational school or want to go to vocational school or to go to trade school or to earn a certificate that's going to, because of the need that I have, it's going to help me get a entry level job. But in higher education, I think it's an imperative for us to frame for all those students that continuing to advance in higher education is going to help them when it comes to lifetime earnings. And the difference between a person who has a high school certificate and the lifetime earning from that person to associate degree, from associates to bachelor, bachelor's to master's, master's to doctoral degree, that difference over a lifetime is about $1.7 million in earnings based on the time that a person, say 16 to 65, those lifetime earnings. So it helps for some students and families. They may think, and I love the entrepreneurial spirit of today's student and youth. I love it. But there's still a need and a place for additional learning after high school and training, even if a student is able to become the latest and greatest social media influencer. I'm not saying that don't do it. I'm saying you can still go to college to learn about marketing, accounting, right? All these things are still important. Business administration is super important. And then
Mhm.
what about information systems? And so my wife always teases me that I graduated from this St. Peter's University, my alma mater, with an MIS degree, MBA and MIS, Masters in Information Systems in 1998. So she makes fun of me because she said, "What was your master's degree? Turn the computer off if something goes wrong." And I was like, "Well, actually, that was the number one thing I learned, I think, out of that process." But it was still like what I learned truly in that MS degree almost 30 years ago was not to be afraid of advancements in software and hardware. That's what I learned. And I've been
Yeah.
an early adapter when it comes to whatever is the latest technology or space that we're in. I'm an early adapter because I believe because of the way I've educated myself over the years, but specifically when it comes to that MIS degree.
Yeah, no, and I think just the lifelong learning is and yeah, definitely hope as well that higher ed has a role in helping to shape that and creating all these different touch points, just because I think it's more necessary now than ever. And I was laughing just in the kind of influencer example of like business school. I learned recently that even there's an influencer. Her name is Alex Earl. She's actually from New Jersey.
Mhm.
She's on Dancing with the Stars right now, but she has a scholarship that she, I guess, endowed or donated to in the business school at the University of Miami, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah,
Um, and yeah, no matter if you're an entrepreneur, like you need to learn knowing accounting, knowing business, marketing, there's definitely a lot of, different skills you'll need to bring to the table.
yeah.
So,
Well, if you
um,
think back to, I'm a '70s baby and graduated high school in the '80s, and I am in the Hall of Fame at St. Peter's University for football. I made the I believe at the time NAIA All-Star team, captain of the football team. My dream, like every other person who's ever played a sport, is to make it to the professional league. And getting anywhere near that door, and I got a little close to it, I can say, going to college and everything I learned to that point would have been the tools that I needed when I made it to that next level. Because it's being a professional on the field and it's being a professional in life. And so again, going to college is a necessity, and it could be a help in how people move, and really enhance and grow their life. But I want to make a quick plug for Kean University, which is the Board of Trustees at Kean University recently approved in-state tuition for all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and the world.
Yeah.
So that now puts Kean University in a place that on average, it's almost like about a $9,000 scholarship that's offered to students outside of New Jersey to come and be a part of the Kean University family. Kean is on the move. Within the last 5 years, Kean has become New Jersey's first urban research institution, and now Carnegie designated Research 2 University. So Kean is definitely on the rise, and it's a place that's quickly, um, the name is resonating because we think of following President Repillette here at Kean University. We follow a philosophy of being an anchor institution, and that anchor is in, now it's in, Union area. It's in Ocean. We're about to merge with New Jersey City University. That's going to take us to Hudson County. So then it's beyond those counties in the state of New Jersey, and now it's beyond the region, and now we're looking at across the United States and now across the globe, and the way that we're offering opportunities for students.
Yeah, no, I love I love that. I love the ambition. I think that's definitely necessary now, and will put you all in a good, great place. And excited to share this with students on Scholarships 360. Who these are the types of programs we love sharing with students, just because it's just paying for college can be complicated, and just like
Yes.
the investments that institutions are making, we want students to and families to be aware of that.
Yes.
As we wrap up, just kind of curious for all the seniors and families out there, what is your biggest piece of advice, and maybe something they can act on in the next like week? It's fall, so maybe they've submitted some applications, start thinking about submitting applications. What's one piece of advice they can get started on this week?
Sure. I would say just on a national and world scale, is a level of uncertainty that's out there. What I would say to students, and especially seniors, is to focus on the things that they have control over. That's their grades, making sure that any testing that they need to take, that they've registered for, if they've taken it, applications, the ones that they want to apply to, they've secured those applications, open houses. From this point, over the next few weeks, there are probably open houses everywhere, every Saturday, every Sunday. Choose those schools, visit those schools, especially if a student is considering going to a school out of state. It is very important for that student and family to visit
Mhm.
the institution, because you have to look for fit. And fit is, yeah, academics and majors and cost, but it's also, how do I fit into this community? That's the campus community and the surrounding community. So I would say, more than any other time, finishing up applications and things as early as possible is the advice. Making sure, because we do look at senior year grades when we're doing the evaluation period for students in their application process. So finish up strong.
Yeah, no, I love that. Well, great note to end on, Latoro. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been so much fun. And hope you have a great rest of the day.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for tuning in to another episode of Office Hours with Will Geiger. If you're a student or parent, don't forget to check out app.scholarships360.org, where you can sign up for our free scholarship matching platform. For colleges, we've got solutions to make your work easier, which you can check out at connect.scholarships360.org. And one last thing, if you or someone you know would make a great guest on the show, I'd love to hear from you. You can always reach me by email or on LinkedIn. Until next time, thanks again for listening.